Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Janara and I guide mothers through the mental and emotional transition to motherhood, something that we should have been taught. I organize my content so that mothers feel seen first, educated second, and supported always. I also make sure that I make space for their village too, because maternal mental health is not an individual responsibility, but a collective one. Let's begin. In my other video, we talked about how matrescence and hormones and how the hormonal shifts of pregnancy and postpartum can impact mood, anxiety, and emotional sensitivity. Today, we are going to go over the brain structure and function in matrescence. And we're going to break this down into 5 different parts. What changes structurally, what changes functionally, which one of these changes are adaptive, and when adaptive becomes overwhelming. So let's begin. The maternal brain goes through neuroplasticity, the brain reorganizing itself in response to pregnancy and caregiving demands. One of the most cited studies, key findings that they found, was that pregnancy was associated with long-lasting reduction in gray matter volume, particularly in areas involved in social cognition, emotional processing, theory of mind, understanding other mental states. And here is the most important part. Gray matter reduction does not mean brain damage. It reflects synaptic pruning, the brain becoming more specialized and efficient because you now have a baby to take care of. When you think about it in less sciencey words, it just means that it has less noise and more precision in your brain. The maternal brain becomes more finely tuned so that you can keep up with infant cues, emotional signals, social interpretation. Now we're going to go through functional changes and how the brain responds. Beyond the structure, the brain activity changes too. Functional MRI studies show there's an increased activation in the amygdala. And the amygdala is involved in threat detection, heightened response to infant crying, increased vigilance. This is protective, but heightened amygdala activation can also increase anxiety and sensitivity, heightened fear responses if stress is high. The prefrontal cortex, which is in charge of emotional regulation, decision-making, impulse control, sleep deprivation, weakens the prefrontal regulation. So what happens then? Amygdala, or the alarm system in our brains, gets really loud, and the prefrontal cortex, the calming system, is tight. The imbalance can feel like overwhelm, irritability, emotional reactivity, functional changes in our brain. Beyond structure, brain activity changes too. Functional MRI study shows that there is increased activation in the amygdala, which is involved in threat detection, heightened response to infant crying, increased vigilance, and this is what is the protective side of our brain. But heightened amygdala activation can also increase anxiety sensitivity and heightened fear responses if stress is high. Now we're going to go over the reward system. Dopamine circuits activate when mothers see their baby. This supports bonding and caregiving motivation. However, if depression is present, reward activation can be blunted. And this is why some moms feel ambivalence. I love my baby, but I don't feel joy. And this does not mean that you are failing. This is not a moral failure. It is neurochemical. These changes are happening because your brain, your mental state and emotional state is going through something very big so that you can function while also taking care of the baby. Now we're going to go over the cognitive changes that our brains go through during pregnancy and postpartum. The cognitive changes that happens are commonly called mom brain or lizard brain. Usually that has a very negative connotation. So let's talk about it. This is commonly called mom brain, which usually involves sleep fragmentation, hormonal shifts, cognitive overload or the mental load that we all carry, constant task switching, stress hormones, which could then have the effects of reduced working memory, difficulty focusing, increased forgetfulness, slower processing speed, but this is not an intelligence decline. It is the brain reallocating resources to survival and caregiving, which is very important for a new mother. Let's talk about why these changes are adopted. From an evolutionary lens, increased vigilance protects offspring. Heightened emotional sensitivity improves attunement. Prioritizing infant cues ensures survival. And identity reorientation strengthens attachment. Problem arises when adaptive sensitivity plus chronic sleep deprivation plus isolation plus high expectations plus no support equals nervous system overload. When these adaptive changes becomes overwhelming, the stress can shift into hypervigilance, persistent anxiety, panic symptoms, intrusive thoughts, emotional dysregulation, but not because a mother is broken. That is because she is becoming. Maternal brain is designed for caregiving and community. When we remove the community and add modern pressure, and the system destabilizes. That's just like a domino effect. If you've ever felt more emotional, more sensitive, more anxious, or more overwhelmed than you used to, there's a biological reason for that. It means that your brain is going through something special. Your brain is becoming more finely tuned to social cues, especially for your baby's cues. You are literally wired for attunement. At the same time, the amygdala, the brain alarm system, becomes more responsive. That's why you wake up to small sounds. That's why you feel hyper alert. And that's very protective. But here's the catch. When you layer sleep deprivation and isolation on top of that, the alarm system gets loud, calming system gets tired. So if you feel more reactive or on edge, that doesn't mean that you're unstable. It means that your nervous system is carrying a lot. Motherhood reshapes your brain for caregiving, but caregiving was never meant to happen alone. And that's the part we have to fix, not you. That's all we have for today. On my next video, we will go in deeper about identity and self-concept and why we feel like we have lost ourselves in motherhood. If this resonated with you, stay with me. We're building this conversation layer by layer, hormones, brain, identity, relationships, because motherhood isn't just about raising a baby. It's about becoming. And you deserve to understand what's happening to you while it's happening. Subscribe if you want more motherhood explained in a way that makes you feel seen first, educated second, and supported always. And remember, you are not broken. You are become, and you are never meant to do this alone.